In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about taking the square roots. So we're going to be solving by square roots today, which will be super exciting, super new. So for your warm-up, it says for each expression represents two numbers. We'll write what these two numbers are. So this plus or minus out in front here, it means that my number can be positive or negative. And so I need to figure out what the square root of 49 is, because this is my one of my values is positive and one of my values is negative. Well, I know that the square root of 36 is 6, so the square root of 49 is a positive 7 or a negative 7. So knowing that for this one right here, I can instantly know this is 1 plus or minus 7. So my two options that I have are 1 plus 7 and 1 minus 7, because I have two options that my answer could be. Well, 1 plus 7 is 8, and 1 minus 7 is negative 6. So those are my two options. Now I'm going to do the same process over here, but now I have 8 plus 2 divided by 5, and 8 minus 2 divided by 5, because I need to break them both up to get both answers. 8 plus 2 will give me 10, divided by 5 can be reduced. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So one of my answers is 2. 8 minus 2 is 6 divided by 5. Well, that can't give me a nice number. I can leave it as an improper fraction, or what I can say is 1 and 1 and a fifth. So I have 2 and 1 and a fifth. Now this one might look super long, but bear with me. What is a negative times a negative? Well, two negatives make a positive. 5 times 5 is actually 25. So here I have plus or minus the square root of 25. And now I'm going to multiply negative 4 times a 4 times 1. Well, negative 4 times 4 gives me a negative 16. Negative 16 times 1 still gives me a negative 16. And now I can actually subtract 25 from 16. So I have plus or minus what? 9. Absolutely. Yep. So now I have plus or minus 9. I know 9 is a perfect square. I know that this is actually going to be plus or minus a 3. So my answers essentially are a positive 3 or a negative 3. So keep that in mind, this plus or minus symbol, while we go through today's unit. So we're going to actually solve these strings. These are called quadratic strings, a bunch of different sets of numbers that we're going to solve. So we're actually going to solve these together, since either you missed class or you wanted to review. So I have x plus 2 squared equals 9. So in order to take undo a squared, this 2, this exponent of 2, I need to take the square root of each side. The reason I need to do that is because this squared right here needs to be undone. So like the opposite of subtraction is addition, or the opposite of multiplication is division. The opposite of a square root is a number squared, or the opposite of a number squared is the square root. So what's going to happen is these are going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with, I'm just going to be left with x plus 2 equals whatever the square root of 9 is. Well, I know the square root of 9 is a plus or minus 3. How exciting! Now I need to get x by itself. Well, in order to do that, I need to get rid of this positive 2. Meaning, I need to subtract 2 to both sides. Now, I need to leave these both separate. The reason why is because this is a negative 2, and this is a plus or minus 3. Meaning, they can't be put together. If they do, I'll get one answer. But I actually need two answers in order to solve. Because, you'll see why soon. So now I have two sets of answers. I have x equals negative 2 plus 3 and x equals -2 minus 3, meaning two different sets of answers, which is what we're looking for, just like in the warm-up. If I have $2 and I gain $3, I have $1 total. -2 and a -3, or -2 minus 3, is going to become more negative. So I actually have a -5 for that one. So using the exact same process here with the one that we just did, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. I need to take the square root of this x plus 2 squared. But what I need to first do is get rid of this 1. This 1 can't be there. I need to have this x plus 2 squared all by itself, meaning I need to subtract the 1 from both sides. So then I could take the square root. So x plus 2 squared equals 26 minus 1 is 25. So now I can take the actual square root of both sides to cancel out this square. So I'm left with x plus 2 on the left side, and the square root of 25, well, what times itself gives me 25? 5, plus or minus, of course. Now I'm at the same step as I did over in the first problem here. I need to get rid of this 2. So I essentially have x equals -2 plus or minus 5. Now, the reason I put the plus or minus 5 after the -2 is specifically because now I can instantly see, oh, I need x minus 2 minus 5 and x -2 plus 5. That way I can have my two answers. So I would get -7 and 3. Pretty neat. And this will just take some practice. You know, don't beat yourself up too much. So let's try the next few here. And at any point, do pause and try it yourself. I believe those are actually the second questions, but that's okay. We solved those a little early. All right, so the opposite of a squared is square root. So now I need to take the square root of both sides. On the left side, I'm going to be left with x. On the right side, I'm going to be left with plus or minus 4. So my answer, you can leave it as is. This is an acceptable answer. Mathematicians like that a lot easier than writing it like this. Now, if I had another number, like in our last example where I had a coefficient and a plus or minus 5, I obviously want to actually write out what both of those answers are. Okay. So then we need to get the x squared by itself. And in this case, we're going to add 9 because the opposite of a -9 is a positive 9. So I'm left with x squared equals, oh my goodness, 25. We know what the square root of 25 is. That's a plus or minus 5. Crazy. All right, I know those two slides might have not been in order, but we still solved them. That's super cool. Let's try our last one here. All right, so it says what is one of the two values for x? So in this case, I can't add the 4 to both sides. I mean, I can, but the easiest way to do this is we're going to actually FOIL this out, meaning I'm going to distribute and figure out what my final answer is, just like what we've been doing the last time. And I'll bring down my -4. So what I'm going to do here is combine any like terms. I have two sets of -3x's, which is going to give me a -6x. Except -3 plus -3 gives me -6. And I can also combine 9 minus 4 to give me 5. And now I can actually factor it out. So the factors of 5 are going to be 5 in itself. So I know I'm dealing with x's in the front here. And since this right here, this is -6 and this is a +5, meaning that both of my answers are going to, or the numbers inside of my parentheses are going to be both negative. So I have the only factors of 5 and 1, which give me 6. -5 plus a -1 does in fact give me a -6. So now, just like in the last week we were dealing with, where we set the 0 product property, I can set these both equal to 0. And what I get here is a +5 and a +1. So those are my 2 sets of answers. Woo! So now you can do the checkpoint called analyzing solutions.